Constructing the supply curve. In the previous sections, we learned how to calculate marginal cost, average cost per unit, and the rule that maximum profit is achieved when price, P, equals marginal cost, MC. Now, we will use all these tools to draw the supply curve of a producer in perfect competition. To draw the supply curve, we need two pieces of data. The first is total output, and the second is marginal cost per unit. On the horizontal axis, we place total output, and on the vertical axis, marginal cost per unit. Then we graphically plot the points where these intersect. What do we get? We get a curve of marginal cost relative to total output. But there is an important point: the producer's supply curve does not start from the very first point. It only starts from the point where diminishing marginal returns begin. Why? Because at the beginning, when marginal output is increasing, marginal cost actually decreases. This doesn't make sense as a supply curve. We wouldn't want to produce less when the price rises. The supply curve starts only from the point where marginal cost begins to rise, that is, from the point where marginal output starts to decline. In our example, from the first worker up to the fourth worker, marginal output increases. But starting from the fifth worker, marginal output begins to decline. Therefore, only from a total output level of 640 units can we draw the producer's supply curve. In addition to the marginal cost curve, we need to plot on the same graph the average cost per unit. Why? Because the supply curve of a producer in perfect competition begins at the minimum point of the intersection between marginal cost per unit and average cost per unit. Let's look at the graph. On the horizontal axis, we have total output at every level. On the vertical axis, we have marginal cost per unit. For example, at an output of 640 units, what is the marginal cost per unit? At 750 units, what is the marginal cost per unit? We see that from a certain level, marginal cost continues to rise. When does marginal cost per unit decrease? When marginal output increases. And when does marginal cost start to rise? When marginal output declines. Therefore, the supply curve of the producer in perfect competition corresponds to the point where marginal output is decreasing. The starting point of the supply curve is the intersection between the MC curve, marginal cost, and the AVC curve, average variable cost. From there upward, the marginal cost curve is the supply curve. What characterizes the supply curve? That as production increases, marginal cost rises. We see a positive relationship between the quantity produced and marginal cost. As the producer expands production capacity, the price per unit increases. Now, if we replace marginal cost with the market price of the product, we gain a key insight: the higher the market price of the product, the greater the quantity supplied by the producer. This is exactly the law of supply. The MC curve reflects the supply curve of the producer in perfect competition. The implication: as production increases, marginal cost per unit rises, so for it to be profitable for the producer to produce a larger quantity, the market price must be at least as high as the marginal cost. For example, if the market price is 100 shekels per unit, then as long as marginal cost per unit is less than 100 shekels, it is profitable for the producer to produce. But once marginal cost reaches 100 shekels, the producer stops. It doesn't make sense to produce a unit that costs 110 shekels when the producer only receives 100 shekels. At this point, production halts. The producer will produce as long as the market price is higher than marginal cost per unit. This is the supply curve of a producer in perfect competition. It slopes upward from left to right and satisfies the condition of diminishing marginal returns. If we look at the law of diminishing marginal returns, initially, marginal output increases, and at a certain point, it begins to decline. In the segment where marginal output increases, marginal cost decreases. Only from a certain point, when marginal output declines, does marginal cost begin to rise. It is in this rising segment of marginal cost that the supply curve of the producer in perfect competition begins. In the price-quantity plane, with price, P, on the vertical axis and quantity, Q, on the horizontal axis, the supply curve slopes upward from left to right. As the quantity produced increases, the price the producer demands rises because marginal cost rises. Given a certain market price, the producer chooses the quantity where market price equals marginal cost, and stops there. This is the complete picture of the supply curve. It coincides with the marginal cost curve from its minimum point upward, and it expresses the positive relationship between market price and quantity supplied.